The phrase "money was tight" was the constant refrain of my youth, a mantra whispered in hushed tones, yet always with a certain selective elasticity. It was a shroud draped over my own milestones, obscuring them from view. Money was tight for my birthdays. A forgotten grocery store cake, a hand-me-down sweater, a hurried happy birthday amidst the usual family chaos. It was tight for my graduation, marked by cheap streamers and a lukewarm barbecue. But this financial austerity, this supposed hardship, was a phantom limb that never hindered Madison. For her, the purse strings were not merely loosened. They dissolved into an endless stream of opportunity and indulgence. Madison's ballroom parties, her Sweet 16, a veritable Cinderella ball costing more than some people's annual salary, were never constrained. Her diamond bracelets, sparkling like captured starlight on her delicate wrists, materialized as if by magic. Her brand new BMW sleek, polished status symbol acquired the moment she turned 16 was an expected rite of passage, financed without a second thought. My name is Kamala Henderson. Growing up in the manicured aspirational sprawl of suburban Minneapolis wasn't about idyllic childhoods or carefree days. It was about an early, brutal lesson in hierarchy, a swift and indelible carving out of my specific, unspoken rank within the family unit. I was the invisible daughter, a shadow flickering at the periphery, rarely seen, even less often heard. I was the one perpetually designated to understand, to be reasonable, to accept the disparities without complaint. I was the one who was simply expected to endure, to survive, to make do. This early conditioning wasn't cruel in the overt sense. It was far more insidious, a slow, steady erosion of my sense of worth, a constant reiteration that my needs were secondary, my presence ancillary. And so, I worked. I didn't just work for pocket money. I worked for self-validation, for the quiet satisfaction of earning my own way, for the tangible proof of my existence. I saved every penny, every dime, not for frivolous luxuries, but with the grim determination of someone building an escape hatch. I built. I built my skills, my knowledge, my resilience, brick by agonizing brick, laying the foundation for a future I knew I had to forge entirely on my own. Then, decades later, when the scaffolding of my life was finally complete, I posted one simple photo. It was an aerial shot, captured with a drone I'd invested in, showcasing not just a house, but a dream made manifest. A sprawling lake house, nestled on 15 pristine acres, boasting a private shoreline where the water lapped gently against the sand. The windows, vast expanses of glass, were drinking in the golden afternoon sunlight, reflecting the sky back with an almost defiant gleam. The caption was deliberately understated, a quiet pronouncement that carried the weight of years of unspoken hurt and relentless effort. Thanks for the motivation. Their phones, the phones of my parents, my sister, the extended network of relatives and family friends who had always looked past me, exploded. The digital world buzzed with their sudden, performative interest, a thinly veiled curiosity that reeked of jealousy. Oh, Camila, how wonderful. Is this a vacation rental? Who are you with? The messages poured in, a torrent of inquiries designed not to celebrate, but to dissect, to minimize, to understand how I, the invisible daughter, could have achieved such a thing. Have you ever faced something like this? I added a rhetorical flourish for the algorithm, but also a genuine question to the silent multitude who might understand. Tell me in the comments. They thought I had simply bought a vacation, a temporary reprieve, a fleeting moment of luxury. They couldn't have been more wrong. I hadn't bought a vacation. I had built a boundary. I had erected a physical manifestation of my independence, a tangible wall against the insidious expectations and dismissals that had defined my early life. My childhood, I realized much later, had effectively operated on two distinct calendars, two divergent timelines. One was meticulously curated for Madison's glittering milestones, a meticulously planned procession of achievements and celebrations. The other, an empty, unspoken space, was reserved solely for my excuses, for the quiet rationalizations of why I couldn't have, couldn't do, couldn't be. Madison's 16th birthday, a lavish spectacle etched forever into the family mythology, occupied an entire Marriott ballroom. 200 guests, an impressive throng of family, friends, and hangers-on, swirled through the opulent space, their laughter echoing amidst the crystal chandeliers. A DJ, flown in from some trendy coast, spun beats that pulsed through the room. The centerpiece, a towering chocolate fountain, stood taller than my adolescent frame, its molten cascade of sweetness a metaphor for the endless bounty bestowed upon her. Every moment, every manufactured smile, every forced embrace was meticulously documented by a professional photographer whose rates, I later discovered, dwarfed the entire cost of my future state university tuition. It was a statement, a declaration, a monument to her importance. My 16th birthday, a quiet, almost apologetic affair, landed on a Tuesday. A school night. There was no ballroom, no DJ, no fountain of confectionery excess. Mom, with a harried sigh and a faint apology, baked a box cake, its artificial vanilla scent a stark contrast to the rich chocolate I'd glimpsed in Madison's professional photo album. 16 candles, cheap and colorful, were jammed into the spongy frosting, leaning precariously like weary soldiers on the brink of surrender. During dinner, a hushed, almost somber affair, Dad scrolled through his phone, his attention miles away, lost in the blue glow of his screen. No fanfare, no toasts. Just the familiar weight of neglect. When the awkward silence stretched too long, Mom offered the familiar refrain, the well-worn excuse that had become the soundtrack of my life. Money's tight, sweetie. Camila, you understand better than your sister. Those words, delivered with a soft, sympathetic tone, were not comforting. They were a blade, honed sharp by years of repetition, carving deeper into my nascent sense of self-worth than any physical wound ever could. They validated her extravagance by invalidating my very existence. They taught me that my understanding was a burden, a price to be paid for her privilege. At 17, Madison, simply because she was Madison, because a Tuesday felt particularly Tuesday-like, received another sparkling token of affection, a delicate diamond pendant, a casual just because gift that shimmered with the effortless ease of her existence. At 18, my own coming of age was marked by a single, perfunctory birthday text, a digital afterthought. The accompanying excuse was delivered face-to-face, almost apologetically, but with an unshakable finality. Driving lessons are just too expensive for us right now, Camila. You understand. Simultaneously, almost insultingly, Madison's private driving instructor, a patient, silver-haired man, regularly parked his immaculate practice car outside our suburban home, diligently guiding her through parallel parking and three-point turns. The local church members, ever eager to praise the golden child, extended their effusive congratulations when she finally obtained her license, a testament to her blossoming independence. I, meanwhile, continued my quiet vigil at bus stops, watching the world pass by through grimy windows, the smell of exhaust fumes a constant companion. The disparities continued into the crucial period of college visits. Madison, navigating the selection process with all the grandeur of a royal tour, embarked on a whirlwind journey to 12 elite campuses. Each visit was an excursion in style, complete with stays in boutique hotels, lavish dinners at upscale restaurants, and a bounty of university-branded souvenirs that piled up in her room like trophies. For me, the college application process was a solitary strategic campaign fought within the confines of my small bedroom. The wallpaper became a canvas for my ambition, meticulously covered with printouts of scholarship opportunities, financial aid deadlines, and the faded logos of countless universities. My college visits were often undertaken alone, fueled by stale granola bars, navigated through the bustling, anonymous halls of Greyhound bus stations, each journey a stark reminder of the chasm between our two realities. Graduation from high school, the culmination of years of academic rigor and quiet dedication, should have been my moment of redemption, my hard-won victory lap. I had excelled, defying the odds and the unspoken expectations of mediocrity. I finished with a staggering 4.2 GPA, a testament to countless late nights and unwavering focus. Northwestern University, a beacon of academic prestige, had extended an early acceptance, a coveted nod of recognition. I allowed myself a fragile moment of hope, thinking, maybe now. Maybe finally, I will receive the recognition I've earned. But the celebration, or what passed for it, was a stark mirror to my entire childhood. 8 people, a sparse collection of relatives and a couple of sympathetic family friends, trickled into our backyard. The space meant for joyous gathering, sagged under the weight of limp dollar store streamers, their faded colors a metaphor for the muted enthusiasm. Mom, with her usual air of resigned duty, presented a sheet cake from the local grocery store, its generic frosting bearing no personal touch. Dad, ever the arbiter of financial scarcity, simply shook his head. A familiar, regretful gesture. Unexpected expenses, Camila. You understand. The unspoken subtext, the brutal truth of those unexpected expenses, was Madison's extravagant senior trip to Europe, a grand tour of historical sites and vibrant cities, all expenses paid. Her graduation gift had been an ice sculpture, a glistening ephemeral masterpiece commissioned for a lavish party at the country club. Mine, presented with an almost embarrassed shrug, was a pawn shop laptop, its scratched casing and sluggish processor a stark symbol of my worth in their eyes. I retreated to the bathroom, the noise of the meager party a dull throb in the background. My friend Jessica, bless her empathetic heart, quietly slipped me a crisp $20 bill, her eyes filled with a compassion that cut deeper than any insult. It was a gesture of kindness, a recognition of my invisible pain, and it was in that moment more than my parents had spent on me for the entire occasion. Alone in the sterile quiet of that bathroom, tears streaming down my face, a silent, ironclad vow formed in the depths of my being. If they wouldn't celebrate me, if their love was so conditional and so selectively deployed, then I would learn to celebrate myself. I would become my own champion. If you've ever been through this, if you've ever felt this profound neglect, know this. You're not alone. I wasn't destined to be the cherished daughter, the one showered with affection and praise. I was the daughter by their design who was meant only to endure, to withstand, to survive. And survive I would. Northwestern became my personal battlefield, a crucible forged not for the typical college rites of passage, parties, social recognition, carefree exploration, but for the grim, relentless struggle of survival. The towering edifice of Northwestern's tuition, a monolithic sum, loomed over me like an insurmountable mountain. while a hard-won array of scholarships, secured through endless applications and essays, managed to cover approximately half of the exorbitant cost. The remaining sum was a suffocating burden. Student loans, like invisible chains, wrapped themselves tightly around my future, binding me to years of repayment before I'd even stepped foot in a professional office. And so, the work continued, intensified, became the defining rhythm of my life. My days were a meticulously choreographed dance between classes and income generation. Library nights blurred into early mornings, fueled by stale coffee and an unyielding will. I picked up tutoring shifts, explaining complex calculus to bewildered freshmen, earning meager sums that felt monumental. Weekends were consumed by internships, unpaid or barely paid, designed not for prestige but for the bare minimum, covering rent for my tiny, sparsely furnished off-campus apartment. Every phone call home, rare and often dreaded, became a predictable, infuriating replay of the same narrative channel. It was a highlight reel of Madison's effortless existence. Her sorority mixers, replete with sparkling dresses and effervescent laughter. Her latest designer clothes, purchased with a casual swipe of a card. Even the minor scratch on her BMW, an inconvenience swiftly remedied by the immediate acquisition of an entirely new, even more luxurious vehicle. Supporting Madison is expensive, Kamala. Mom would sigh into the receiver, her voice laced with a weary justification. But you understand, and I did. I understood perfectly. Their money, once so tight, possessed an almost magical elasticity, effortlessly expanding to accommodate Madison's every whim, her every desire, her every misstep. But for me, it remained rigidly, unyieldingly inelastic. Faced with this stark reality, I learned to stretch myself. I learned to survive on 4 hours of fractured sleep, my mind constantly churning, planning, calculating. My meals became a monotonous cycle of instant ramen, cheap and filling, seasoned not with spices, but with an insatiable hunger for ambition. I cultivated an easy, approachable smile for my professors, a necessary veneer of normalcy. But for my parents, I cultivated silence, a protective barrier against their casual indifference and their unceasing demands for my understanding. Every academic success, every small victory, echoed in the lonely confines of my empty room, uncelebrated, unacknowledged. Loneliness, a constant, pervasive presence, became my unspoken roommate, a silent companion through the arduous years of my becoming. Then came Madison's engagement, another milestone that triggered the familiar lavish theatrics. The engagement party, a prelude to the main event, was another country club spectacle, an elaborate affair designed to impress. 300 guests, a veritable ocean of well-wishers, milled about amidst an opulent display. Flowers, cascading like vibrant waterfalls, adorned every surface, their perfume heavy in the air. A videographer, equipped with state-of-the-art cameras, meticulously captured every staged smile, every effusive vow. I witnessed it all unfold not in person, but through the impersonal lens of social media. The photos, belatedly tagged, appeared on my Facebook feed as I scrolled alone in my small apartment, a hollow ache in my chest. I swallowed my pride, a bitter pill, and made a tentative call home, a fragile hope blossoming in my chest, a desperate longing for an invitation to the impending wedding. The response, delivered with Mom's practiced, sympathetic tone, was a familiar sting. "Oh, sweetie, we know how stressful finals are for you, and travel's just too expensive right now, isn't it? We understand." The implication, unspoken but deafening, was clear. They were choosing Madison's wedding, a spectacle of their making, over my graduation ceremony, a personal triumph that they could not, or would not, fully embrace. That particular rejection, the casual dismissal of my monumental achievement in favor of her frivolous celebration, cut deeper than any financial burden, deeper than any tuition fee ever could. It was a wound to my soul. In that moment of profound clarity and searing pain, a decisive shift occurred within me. I decided, with an unyielding resolve, to stop asking. Stop hoping for their approval, their recognition, their love. I would stop performing for an audience that refused to see me. Instead, I would start building. Not just a career, but a life entirely of my own design. One where my value was intrinsic, not contingent on their fickle affections. Finance, the language of power and prosperity, became my weapon of choice. Numbers, I discovered, were beautifully impartial. They never played favorites, never judged, never dismissed. They simply were. Real estate, in particular, began to whisper possibilities to me, articulating opportunities in ways my parents never had, speaking a language of potential that resonated deeply with my driven spirit. Where others saw decay and dilapidation, I saw untapped value. Vacant malls, dismissed as symbols of economic decline, appeared to me as canvases for transformation, teeming with unrealized potential. Empty storefronts, abandoned husks of forgotten commerce, shimmered with the promise of second chances, of new beginnings. I immersed myself in the work, driven by a singular focus, consistently logging 80-hour weeks. And slowly, inexorably, success began to notice me, to acknowledge my efforts, long before my family ever would. It was a silent, vindicating recognition. My true breakthrough, the turning point that solidified my nascent career, arrived in the unlikely form of a dying shopping center, a forgotten monument to suburban decline. Everyone else in the industry, seasoned veterans and ambitious newcomers alike, saw only failure, crumbling facades, empty parking lots, a bleak financial forecast. But I, fueled by a different kind of vision, saw something more profound. I saw the strategic location, the prime position accessible to burgeoning communities. I saw the strong bones of the underlying structure, the solid foundations beneath the surface decay. Most importantly, I saw the potential for rebirth, a phoenix rising from the ashes of forgotten commerce. Our team, a lean but dedicated group, acquired the property at a deeply discounted price, buying low where others feared to tread. We then embarked on a meticulous, thoughtful renovation, not just cosmetic, but structural, transforming the space into a vibrant modern hub. We curated tenants with the precision and discernment of an art collector, carefully selecting businesses that complemented each other, creating a synergistic ecosystem that drew in new customers. 18 months later, our gamble paid off spectacularly. Profits tripled, exceeding all initial projections. My name, once unknown, began to be whispered with reverence in corporate boardrooms, a symbol of innovative vision and shrewd execution. These whispers evolved into coveted invitations, to exclusive, wine-soaked deals brokered in upscale restaurants, to private, influential circles where decisions shaped industries, to opportunities to contribute to prestigious industry articles and speak on panels at national conferences. Yet, amidst all this external validation, none of it, not the accolades, nor the financial success, nor the professional respect, truly filled the profound silence that lingered after family dinners I was never invited to. That silence, a gaping hole in my heart, continued to push me harder, to drive me further. A constant reminder of what I lacked. A business trip to Tokyo, a city pulsating with an electric energy, served to open my eyes even wider, expanding my horizons beyond anything I had ever imagined. I walked the neon-drenched streets alone, a solitary figure amidst the vibrant chaos, my ears picking up the distinct sound of laughter spilling from countless restaurants where families gathered. Their warmth and connection a stark contrast to my own isolation during a high-stakes meeting. A group of prominent Japanese developers, impressed by my insights and track record, turned to me and asked the question I had unconsciously buried deep within my own ambitions. "Miss Henderson," one of them inquired, his tone thoughtful, "with your demonstrated vision and leadership, why haven't you started your own firm?" I hesitated, the question striking a nerve, touching upon a deep-seated insecurity. Then, driven by a sudden, raw honesty, I admitted the truth that I rarely voiced aloud. "I've thought about it, certainly. But maybe I'm just not enough. Maybe I don't have what it takes." They looked at me, their gazes unflinching, devoid of pity, filled instead with a quiet, knowing certainty. The lead developer, his voice calm and direct, simply stated, "You already are." Those three simple words, delivered with such conviction, resonated with a power that transcended language barriers and cultural differences. They followed me across the vast expanse of the Pacific, embedding themselves into my soul. A quiet affirmation that would soon ignite a revolution. 8 months later, fueled by that newfound certainty and an unshakable resolve, Henderson Real Estate Investments was officially born. The name was a deliberate, calculated choice, a strategic reclaiming of a legacy. It bore the same family surname, yes, but it was forged with an entirely different purpose, destined for an entirely different kind of legacy. I wanted their name, the name that had been synonymous with Madison's frivolous expenditures and my own quiet neglect, attached to something substantial, something I had meticulously built from the ground up, entirely on my own merits. Not a fleeting ballroom spectacle, not a temporary wedding extravaganza, but a robust, enduring company that generated real value, created real opportunities. The launch night glowed with the quiet satisfaction of vindication. 60 carefully selected guests, a formidable gathering of industry giants, astute investors, and loyal clients who had placed their trust in my vision, filled the sophisticated modern space. The room buzzed with genuine excitement, with mutual respect, with the palpable energy of shared success. Conspicuously absent were my parents, their usual excuses unneeded and unheard. Madison, too, was nowhere to be seen, her absence a welcome relief rather than a painful void. Amidst the celebratory hum, I posted a single photo on social media, a candid shot of the gleaming company logo. The caption, concise and powerful, was a quiet declaration of independence. "Building runs in the Henderson blood." A silent, knowing smile touched my lips as I typed it. Turns out, I realized with a profound sense of peace, I had more than enough on my own. And then, as predictably as the changing tides, the calls began. The sudden interest, the effusive congratulations, the overwhelming wave of curiosity, from my extended family and the social circles that had once ignored my very existence. The calls were too numerous, too performative, too sudden to be genuinely sincere. "Camila, darling, we heard about your new venture. So exciting. My goodness, what an incredible achievement. We always knew you had it in you."
The words were hollow, ringing with a forced enthusiasm that grated on my ears. Have you ever faced something like this? I mused, adding the rhetorical question to my internal monologue, connecting with the unseen community of those who understand. Tell me in the comments. There was no mistaking the underlying current. Jealousy, green-eyed and potent, was unmistakably arriving, its engine revving, its presence a palpable hum in the periphery of my newly built life. The true, sickening twist arrived on a seemingly innocuous Tuesday night. It wasn't the hand of fate. It was the cold, hard clarity of a screenshot. My phone buzzed with an unexpected text from Patricia Morrison, the mother of my good friend Blake, a woman of unwavering integrity. Camilla, her message read, "You should see this. I think you need to be prepared." Attached was an image that instantly froze the blood in my veins. A screenshot of a group chat, titled ominously, "Family Plans." The list of participants flashed before my eyes. Mom, Dad, Madison, Aunt Linda, Cousin Rebecca. A chill snaked down my spine. And then, the conversation itself, a torrent of insidious strategizing that unfolded like a grotesque play. Madison. If Camila won't invite us, we'll just have to plan a surprise. She can't ignore us forever, right? Dad. Good idea, Madison. We'll announce a Henderson family weekend at her lake house. Make it sound official. Mom. Oh, she'll cave when guests actually start arriving. She wouldn't want to make a scene in front of everyone. Aunt Linda. Exactly. We can frame it as a family reunion. She simply can't refuse us in public. It's about optics. Cousin Rebecca. A social media influencer, and we can tag sponsors. Make it look philanthropic. Great optics for the brand, Aunt Linda. My stomach churned, a mixture of nausea and disbelief. But the conversation continued, twisting the knife even deeper. Madison. Also, let's discuss adding the lake house to the Henderson Family Trust. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Dad. Absolutely. Yes, it absolutely should be under our family name. It's a family asset. Mom. After all the money we spent on Madison's milestones over the years, Camila truly owes us this. She owes us presents. That single word, owes, struck me like a bolt of white-hot lightning, searing through decades of carefully suppressed pain. Owes. The sheer audacity, the staggering entitlement, the complete and utter rewrite of our shared history. Decades of being overlooked, of being actively neglected, of having my triumphs dismissed and my struggles ignored, now distilled into a distorted narrative where my success, my hard-won independence, was somehow theirs to claim. My sanctuary, the lake house, the physical embodiment of my resilience and autonomy, was being casually recast as community property, a shared asset for their convenience and social maneuvering. My grueling work, my profound sacrifices, my very identity as a self-made woman were being shamelessly rewritten as a debt I owed them, a balance due for the trouble I had caused by daring to succeed outside their shadow. Madison's digital bubble chimed again, her casual assertion a final cutting blow. She even used the Henderson name for her firm. That house is practically family property now anyway. The betrayal bled off the screen, staining the air around me with its toxic essence. I felt my jaw lock, a primal instinct taking over, and my pulse hammered in my ears, a furious drumbeat of indignation. All those quiet years, all those carefully constructed money's tight speeches, all the subtle dismissals and overt preferences. Now, in this chillingly public forum, I saw the raw, unadulterated entitlement, shamelessly dressed up as familial pride. Moments later, Patricia called, her voice steady and calm, a stark contrast to the maelstrom raging within me. Camilla, she stated plainly, I don't support this. Neither does Blake's father. I thought you should know before Saturday. Saturday? The word hung in the air, thick with menace. They had a concrete plan. A choreographed invasion. SUVs loaded with coolers, ready for a faux celebratory picnic. Prepared speeches, undoubtedly laden with passive-aggressive remarks about family togetherness. Photos to post, captions to meticulously craft, all designed to present a narrative of harmony and belonging. A full-blown takeover, meticulously disguised as an act of familial love. I walked the wide, expansive deck that night, the scent of pine needles sharp and clean in the cold air, but unable to cleanse the pollution of betrayal clinging to me. Long distorted shadows from the towering pines stretched across the moonlit surface of the lake, mirroring the twisted shapes of my familial relationships. This house, I realized with a fresh surge of protectiveness, was far more than just wood and stone, glass and steel. It was the physical embodiment of every tear I had shed in solitude, every whispered prayer for recognition. It was a monument to every ignored milestone, every birthday forgotten, every graduation minimized. It was the antithesis of every flimsy excuse handed to me like scripture, each word designed to justify their favoritism and my invisibility. And now, they, the architects of my lifelong neglect, wanted to rewrite the very ending of my story, to claim ownership of the sanctuary I had painstakingly built for myself. So with a clarity born of absolute certainty, I made my own plan. A defense strategy. First, I changed the gate code, a simple act that felt like drawing a powerful line in the sand. Then I meticulously enabled all the security cameras, ensuring every inch of my property was under digital watch. The next morning, the first call I made was to my lawyer, his calm, measured advice a welcome balm to my churning emotions. By midday, I had filed a formal, no trespass notice at the county clerk's office, the official seal stamped cleanly on the documents, making them neat, undeniable, and legally binding. I printed multiple copies, crisp sheets of paper that felt heavier than lead in my hands. That night, sleep was a distant, elusive dream. I sat by the vast stone fireplace, the only light coming from the dancing flames, the stack of official papers resting heavily beside me. Every log that cracked, every spark that flew, sounded like approaching footsteps, a phantom army closing in. My mind replayed a montage of my past. Madison's echoing laughter in glittering ballrooms, Dad's booming speeches about family pride that never included me, Mom's carefully constructed excuses, each one a subtle chisel carving away at my self-worth. In that stark, fire-lit silence, a profound realization dawned. This was the moment. This was what all the years of neglect, all the dismissals, all the quiet suffering had been rehearsing me for. This was my moment to finally speak, to finally stand. Later that evening, Mom called, her voice tinged with a feigned casualness. "Don't be dramatic, honey," she cooed, her words a thinly veiled attempt at manipulation. "We're just trying to bring family together." A little surprise. My voice, though strained, was steady, imbued with a newfound resolve. One weekend, I stated, each word measured and precise, becomes precedent. And precedent, Mom, eventually becomes entitlement. Dad's voice, usually a booming authority, thundered through the line, laced with a barely concealed threat. "Don't make us escalate this, Camila. You don't want to make things difficult." But he was wrong. I had already escalated. I had the documents. I had the proof. And most importantly, I had an absolute unwavering clarity. They were coming on Saturday. And I was done being furniture in their carefully arranged lives. I was done being moved aside, ignored, or taken for granted. I was done. Saturday rose, bright and merciless, the harsh sunlight illuminating every sharp edge of the impending confrontation. A procession of sleek SUVs, heavy with the weight of unspoken entitlement and carefully orchestrated expectations, crawled slowly up my long, winding gravel drive. Doors slammed in a synchronized sequence, the hollow thuds echoing across the still lake. Mom emerged first, her smile a brittle, lacquered mask, her eyes scanning the property for a vantage point. "Surprise," she chirped, the word hollow, devoid of genuine warmth. "Family weekend." Behind her dad, a formidable figure, gripped a leather folder thick with what I knew were his pre-planned talking points. Madison, ever the self-absorbed princess, waved a dismissive hand, her gaze already fixed on the shimmering expanse of the lake, mentally laying claim to its beauty. I didn't wait for them to reach the house. I didn't open the deck, the symbol of my sanctuary. Instead, I met them at the sturdy wrought iron gate, my stance firm, my presence unyielding. "This is private property," I stated, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, hard as the stones beneath my feet. Dad, ever the master of passive aggression, let out a forced, condescending chuckle, a transparent attempt to dismiss my seriousness. "Camila, darling, don't be difficult. We're family." In response, I slowly raised a thick manila envelope, pulling out its contents with deliberate, almost theatrical slowness. It was the no trespass order, its official county seal pressed in vivid blue, starkly visible against the white paper. "This is legal," I articulated, each word a hammer blow. "Filed and active." Mom's voice, usually so composed, cracked, thin and fragile as glass. You actually wouldn't do this. You taught me this theater, Mom." I countered, my gaze unwavering. "You taught me everything about performance, about managing appearances. But you taught me nothing about celebration. Nothing about true love." Madison, ever the fixer, ever the charmer, stepped forward, her hand tentatively outstretched, her expression a practiced blend of concern and mild annoyance. "Camila," she purred, "we're sisters. We can fix this." I instinctively stepped back, widening the invisible chasm between us. "Fixing starts with honesty," I corrected, my voice laced with a weary truth. With a deliberate flourish, I unfolded the printed screenshots, their damning words spilling across the page like a public confession. "She'll cave," I read aloud, my voice echoing their casual cruelty. "Optics. Trust. Family weekend. All tactics. All manipulation." A surgical silence descended, heavy and absolute, broken only by the low rumble of their idling SUVs. Aunt Linda, caught in the act, suddenly found immense fascination in studying the gnarled branches of the old oak tree nearby. Cousin Rebecca, usually glued to her phone, stared intently at her designer shoes, her face a mask of discomfort. Dad's face, initially a mask of bluster, drained of color, then flushed a deep mottled red. That was private planning. He muttered, a desperate attempt to salvage some shred of dignity. "This is private property," I retorted, matching his intensity. "And what you engaged in was manipulation, thinly disguised as love." The air, already thick with the smell of exhaust fumes, now choked with unspoken shame, a palpable miasma of their collective guilt. My palms were sweating, clammy and cold, but my voice remained razor sharp, cutting through the heavy atmosphere.
I had carried the burden of their silence, their judgment, their neglect for decades. I was not, under any circumstances, going to carry their shame anymore. From the corner of my eye, I noticed neighbors, drawn by the unusual commotion, had paused on the road, their dogs barking at the idling engines, sensing the tension. I wondered, fleetingly, if they saw this as a crude spectacle, or as a daughter, finally, irrevocably, drawing a necessary line. Mom's carefully constructed smile finally collapsed, its edges trembling, revealing the raw fear beneath. "You're punishing us," she whispered, her voice reedy, "for misunderstandings." Misunderstandings? I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You missed my high school graduation. You funded Madison's lavish bridal showers and commissioned ice sculptures for her parties. You dismissed my sacrifices as mere independence, a convenient excuse to justify your neglect. You called my ambition a phase, my hard work luck." Her whisper, a familiar, smoky phantom, returned. "Money was tight, Camilla." "No," I stated, my voice steady, imbued with the strength of undeniable truth. "Your excuses were expensive, Mom. They cost me my childhood, my self-worth, my belief in your love. Mine, however, were productive. They built this." Madison's voice, usually so confident, now faltered, a rare moment of vulnerability escaping her carefully curated facade. "Blake compares me to you now," she confessed, her words landing like a fresh blade in the already wounded air. "He wants me to be more like you." Her confession, intended perhaps as an olive branch, felt like a final, twisted appropriation of my identity. "I'm not your measuring stick, Madison," I retorted, my voice firm. "I'm not a mascot for your personal hustle. I am your sister, yes, but I am also a woman, worthy of respect, worthy of my own space." Dad, his face contorted with anger and frustration, snapped his folder shut with a resounding thud. "You're cruel, Camilla," he accused, his voice thick with indignation. "No," I answered, meeting his furious gaze without flinching. "I'm clear. I'm finally undeniably clear." With a deliberate symbolic gesture, I lifted the deed to the lake house high above my head, the official document fluttering slightly in the breeze. "My name is on this," I declared, my voice ringing with authority. "And so is my boundary. Step inside this gate, and the sheriff follows." Mom's eyes filled with tears, her lower lip trembling. "It feels heartless, Camilla," she sobbed, the performance reaching its crescendo. "It felt heartless for 30 years, Mom," I said, my voice hardening, devoid of pity. "Heartless was every birthday you ignored. Heartless was every ounce of pride you reserved exclusively for Madison. Heartless was being systematically erased from your narrative. You built this. I'm simply holding up the mirror." The engines of their SUVs idled behind them, a chorus of impatient waiting. I reached out and opened the wrought iron gate halfway, a symbolic gesture, an invitation to a choice. "Leave today," I instructed, my voice unwavering, "and decide tomorrow who you really are. Decide if you can ever truly see me, or if you will forever be blinded by your own expectations and resentments." They stared at me, their faces a mixture of shock, confusion, and dawning realization, as if I had suddenly transformed into a stranger, an alien entity. But the truth, the simple, undeniable truth, was far less dramatic. I hadn't changed into someone new. I had finally, fully, unequivocally become myself. I had claimed my sovereign right to choose the threshold of my life, and to decide, with absolute authority, who and what crosses it. Winter settled over the lake house like a long-awaited promise, a soothing balm after the fiery confrontation. Snow, soft and forgiving, sifted through the towering pines, blanketing the earth in a pristine white, covering every scar the land had carried, and perhaps, by extension, some of my own. I sat on the spacious deck one crisp morning, a mug of coffee steaming invitingly against the cold, invigorating air. The silence that enveloped me was deep, profound, but for once, it wasn't a lonely silence. It was a silence filled with peace, with the quiet hum of my own presence. I had weathered the storm. I had found the courage to speak the words I'd been choking on, the truths that had festered in my heart since childhood, and the world hadn't crumbled. It had, instead, finally truly begun. My world. My terms. My phone still buzzes sometimes. A perfunctory text from Mom on holidays. Carefully worded, devoid of genuine warmth, but at least an acknowledgement. A call from Dad, typically brief and cautious, often about something innocuous like the weather, never addressing the elephant in the room. Madison leaves voicemails, her voice artificially bright, starting with effusive cheer and invariably ending in a trailing silence. A tacit admission of her own discomfort and perhaps a flicker of genuine uncertainty about her place in my life now. I answer when I choose, not out of obligation, but out of a conscious decision. I open the metaphorical door when I want, not because I have to. This, I've come to understand, is the essence of true boundary setting. Boundaries, I now firmly believe, are not walls designed to imprison or exclude permanently. They are gates. They exist to protect your space, to regulate who enters,
and to define the terms of engagement. And crucially, I hold the key. Success, in the early years, had felt like a heavy suit of armor, something I donned to protect myself, to prove my worth to a world that had dismissed me. Now it feels like air. Light, invigorating, essential for breath. I can breathe freely, without the desperate need to constantly perform or to wait for external applause. I can celebrate my achievements, big and small, without needing anyone's permission or validation. Family, I've learned through this arduous journey, is built not merely on the accidental lottery of blood, but on the deliberate, conscious actions of behavior. Love, true love, is a verb. It shows up consistently and reliably. It stays through thick and thin, offering unwavering support. It remembers, cherishing the moments, respecting the struggles, acknowledging the triumphs. And when it doesn't, when that active, verbs-based love is absent, we are not doomed to perpetual longing. We learn to build our own tables. We create our own feast. My colleagues, the sharp, driven individuals I collaborate with. My cherished friends, who have witnessed my struggles and celebrated my victories. The bright, ambitious young women I mentor, guiding them through the challenges I once faced. They have become my chosen family. They clap for me, genuinely, exuberantly when I win. They sit with me, silently and steadfastly, when I lose. They remind me, through their actions and their unwavering presence, what love actually sounds like, what acceptance actually feels like. The lake, my beautiful hard-won lake, reflects that profound truth back to me every single day. Every sunrise, painting the sky in hues of gold and rose, whispers a silent affirmation. You made it. You are here. Every gentle ripple on its surface, a testament to its boundless expanse and quiet strength, softly echoes. You belong. You are home. They always said they couldn't afford to celebrate me. A convenient lie to justify their selective affections. Turns out I could afford to celebrate myself, and I still do every single day. I am the celebration now. I am the architect of my own joy, the curator of my own peace. Before saying goodbye, if this story touched your heart, if you recognized a piece of your own journey in mine, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Don't forget to subscribe for more true family betrayal stories that remind us we are stronger than we ever imagined, capable of forging our own paths, and deserving of a love that is freely given, not earned through endless sacrifice. Your strength is your own, and your worth is inherent. Keep building.